Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, October 28th. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Hope everybody is excited for today's sports equinox. Doesn't happen that often, but all four of the major American sports have games today. We're going to talk about all of the action from over the weekend, winners and losers from the NFL and college football. Of course, we're going to talk about the World Series, the Dodgers taking a 2-0 lead, and we're going to preview Monday Night Football as well as dipping our toes into a little bit of early season NBA. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, October 28th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are going to start off our show talking all about the winners and losers from a crazy week in NFL football. As always, we have 5 winners and 5 losers, and we're going to just run through the 5 losers real quick. Starting at number 5 for the losers, it's the Dallas Cowboys with the loss on Sunday Night Football, one where arguably they looked their best that they had all season long against a 49ers team that was injured and struggling. They still found a way to lose it at the end. That was a disastrous third quarter. The 49ers only could play football in that third quarter for some reason, and they still end up losing by a relatively large margin. CeeDee Lamb is able to come in and salvage a lot of this game, which puts you at the number 5 loser, but where you sit right now at 3-4, you currently sit at 12th out of 16 in your conference. That is not where the Cowboys want to be. It is not a good look for them. They've paid Dak all this money. There's so much dysfunction coming in from the top and the bottom of that organization. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen from here, but the Cowboys are the number 5 loser of the week. Sitting at number 4, it's Tua. He makes his triumphant return to football after suffering another scary-looking concussion, and he didn't get hurt. So that might want to make you put him in a winner, but they lose to the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, who now, don't look, have won a couple games in a row, and they are just outside of their division lead in the NFC West. This is an Arizona Cardinals team that has finally, especially in this game, started to use their weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr. He arguably had his best game. You can talk about his week 2 performance where he went off for 2 touchdowns in the first quarter and then didn't touch the ball, but I thought overall this was the most complete performance by Marvin Harrison Jr. on his early career. That shows a lot for both the Dolphins and the Cardinals. First of all, that Dolphins defense has been beaten just up and down. They don't really have a full roster there. They are the way they're paying people. They think they're competing for something. They finally get healthy. They're 1-2 with a fully healthy roster, right? 1-2 with that fully healthy Tua Tagovailoa back there. And also, this team shouldn't be this bad without Tua. We've seen them be competitive, a very similar iteration of this team with Skylar Thompson. There's no reason why this team should have been arguably the worst in the league without Tua. But here we sit now. There are number 4 losers. Our number 3 loser is just Anthony Richardson. Overall, the Colts played a solid game of football. Their defense came up with a couple of big stops, especially down the stretch, turning the ball over on the Texans. The Texans, who probably should have won that game by more, but Anthony Richardson had his fair share of issues in this game. Obviously, starting in the beginning where he finished his first half stats 2 for 15. 2 for 15 for 89 yards. One of those was a 69-yard touchdown, of course. But still, you cannot be a serious NFL quarterback if you're putting up stat lines like that. As much as I want to believe in Anthony Richardson, as much as I want Anthony Richardson to be that guy, I cannot continue to look at him and say, this is a guy who I think can turn it around. He needs a lot of help. And this was the same issues that we saw at Florida. He's a ridiculous athlete. If you give him a play, he's going to take it, but he makes these mental mistakes, makes bad decisions, is inaccurate with the ball. These are things that need to be fixed as soon as possible. And for all intents and purposes, this is still his rookie season, but it's not where you want to be if you're a Colts fan. They're only 4-4. They're not completely out of it yet. This is a team that can still technically find a way to the playoffs, especially with how mid the middle of the AFC has been. They're not out of it, but they need Anthony Richardson to step up, play like he did in week 1. Even that would be a far cry better than what he's been doing these last couple of weeks since he returned from injury. They need that Anthony Richardson back, and they need it back now. Excuse me. Our number 2 loser, it's Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I've said for about the last 3 or 4 weeks, it has been a must-win for this New York Jets team. This is a Jets team that now is 2-6, same record as the Patriots. Their last win came all the way against the Patriots with Jacoby Brissett starting. Jacoby Brissett comes back into this game at about halftime. It doesn't matter. He leads a comeback drive against this Jets team that just added a piece to their defense. Their offense continues to be embarrassingly ineffective. This Jets team cannot move the ball when it needs to move the ball. I cannot take this Jets team seriously anymore. They've made 3 or 4 desperation moves already. They are out of moves, and there's nothing to salvage from this season anymore. The Jets team is just done, and there isn't a future. This is a team that sold everything for the last year or two of Aaron Rodgers, and it's just not working. There's nothing this Jets team can do right now. They're a number 2 loser, and that leads to the number 1 loser. If it was any other situation, if anything else had happened this week, the Jets would have been the number 1 loser. But of course, we had maybe one of the wildest plays I have ever seen on a football field, leading to our number 1 loser being Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback for the Chicago Bears. Now, of course, the main reason he's up here at number 1 is because of the Hail Mary play, right? Taunting the Commanders fans up 3 with a Hail Mary live play in action, and he is taunting the fans. Then he proceeds to run over, not cover his man. Matt Eberflus says in a press conference today, he was supposed to go and cover Noah Brown in the back of the end zone. He tips it up to Noah Brown at the end instead, and the Commanders win one of the most improbable victories I have ever seen. It's not only that, though. He had a pretty bad game overall. For a Bears defense that's one of the better ones in the league, you can say a lot of things about how the Bears played that football game. It was not a good game. It was not a very well-played game for the Bears. But Tyreek Stevenson also gave up a massive play to Terry McLaurin earlier. Gave up a 15-yard penalty with a helmet-to-helmet late hit on Terry McLaurin that put them, the Commanders, in field goal range. This was just an awful game by Tyreek Stevenson, and because of that, and of course all of the press surrounding him for what was maybe the worst play on a football field at that Hail Mary, he is the number 1 loser of the week. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the winners. The winners of the NFL are coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around, I feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, October 28th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the losers of the NFL. In this segment, we turn our attentions to the winners of this Week 8 NFL slate. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, October 28th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we're going to finish up our winners and losers list, keeping on with the winners side of things, talking a little bit about what a crazy week in the NFL it is. As always, 5 winners for this Week 8 in the NFL, and we're going to start off at number 5. Our number 5 winner of the week is Bo Nix. Bo Nix quietly putting together one of the best months for a quarterback in the NFL right now. I have been very loudly a Bo Nix hater on this show, on this podcast. I'm still not going to retract my statement. He has done it against some of maybe the worst competition in the NFL. You talk about his last 4 matchups where by the numbers, by the stats, he's been one of the best in the entire league. He goes up against the Panthers, one of the worst defenses in the league, the Saints, one of the worst defenses in the league, the Chargers, who they lose to, has a solid defense but still not one of the best, and the Raiders. And if you want to continue, who also have one of the worst defenses in the league, if you want to stretch it back a little further, the Jets and the Bucks are the 2 wins that came before that. Both of those teams have their own struggles, but you want to talk about when he's been statistically dominant, it's just those last 4, 3 of them coming against some of the worst teams in the league. That being said, he has looked competent. He's looked really, really good down the stretch of this season, in the middle point here, these last 4 games, leading the NFL in a lot of very important stats. And I want to give him his flowers as a rookie because he's not getting a lot of the talk centered around guys like Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, a lot of the wide receivers that are getting a lot of love. Bo Nix is not getting that love. And as much as I am not a big fan of him as like a quality NFL quarterback, what he's been able to do as a replacement level guy is kind of how I see him, as like a Jimmy G level guy, someone that as long as they're not turning the ball over and have the weapons, they'll be fine. He is someone that deserves a little bit more respect. He had probably his best game of his career. It was very exciting to see, honestly. This was something that I'd been waiting on. Some of his deep balls looked really good. He hadn't looked that good all season long, but Bo Nix is the number 5 winner. Our number 4 winner of the week is, of course, the tight ends on National Tight End Day. The tight ends combined for by far their best week of the season. It had been a down year for tight ends all across the league. You had guys like Cade Otton, Kyle Pitts score twice, George Kittle going off on Sunday Night Football. The yards that were put up by tight ends this week were insane. the amount of stats that tight ends put up. It was by far their best week. Almost everyone found the end zone. Evan Ingram with a near overtime sending touchdown down the stretch. Tyler Kraft got a touchdown in that game as well. This has been just a great week for tight ends. Obviously, it's a coincidence, maybe not, that it all took place on National Tight End Day, but still, an awesome week for the tight ends of the NFL. If they can continue to play like this, maybe we can stop talking about, fantasy-wise, the end of tight ends. But they are our number 4 winner of the week. Our number 3 winner of the week this week goes to none other than the Detroit Lions. And a little more specifically than the Detroit Lions, I want to give it to Khalif Raymond and the return game specifically. What they were able to do on the return game made that box score look like a joke. The Lions put up 52 points. Again, against a not very good team in the Titans, but still 52 points is an accomplishment in itself. Special teams played a large role in that. Khalif Raymond and that special teams unit had 200 plus yards on returns. Also a touchdown, of course. Perfect in the kicking game from Jake Bates, as he continues to be all season. Jared Goff threw for less than 100 yards in this game. Threw for 3 touchdowns. You had a David Montgomery touchdown, throw and run. Jahmyr Gibbs on 11 carries had 130 yards. You look at this box score and you say, oh my goodness, how did they score this many points? They barely put up 200 yards. They only ran about 40 offensive plays. This is a ridiculous stat line. And then you look at the special teams, how they were able to carve up the Titans in that third unit that people forget about a lot of times. That especially gets the win. 52 more points for the Lions. They continue to dominate every single team they face so far this season. This is a really fun team. The Lions special teams and the Lions as a whole are the number 3 winner of the week. The number 2 winner is Jaden Daniels. I kind of touched a little bit on that Commanders Hail Mary that took place, one of the wildest plays that I have ever seen, not only because it's a Hail Mary that only happens so often, but the way he was able to set up that play, everything leading up to it, the way Jaden Daniels toughed out a rib injury that forced him to sit out for 3 out of 4 practices of the week. Did not think he was going to play. The way that defense really stepped up against a Bears offense that has continually been improving. Aside from the one big run that they gave up to DeAndre Swift down the sideline, that defense really shut him down. And more specifically, the secondary really shut them down, which is something that all season long I have been on the Commanders about. They go out there and they shut down a Caleb Williams-led offense that has just, again, continued to get better and better and better every single week of the season, and they just ran into a Commanders brick wall, and it was not enough to get through. There were plenty of bad decisions made by the Bears. We talked a little bit about that in our first segment, in our losers segment, but Jaden Daniels toughing out the injury. Jaden Daniels powering the Commanders to victory, and all that does, and we'll get into it when we do our rookie report later on this week, but it really helps boost his Rookie of the Year case for Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. They're the number 2 winner. And of course, that leads us to the number 1 winner, and it is the city of Cleveland. Jameis Winston comes in, gets a win for the Browns in his first start. The Browns look like a completely different team. They were the only team in the NFL not to score over 20 points through 7 weeks of the NFL season. The only team who had yet to accomplish that. The second Jameis Winston comes in, they almost hit 30 points. That is something that we've been waiting for. Nick Chubb didn't run this offense that much. It was all through the air against a weak Ravens secondary. But what Jameis Winston was able to do with his number 1 weapon being Cedric Tillman is incredibly impressive. He made his fair share of mistakes. The Ravens did not capitalize him. There were 3, maybe 4 interceptions that he could have, maybe should have thrown. Instead, it was a clean day for him. The Ravens blow this game, but the Browns look like they have something. This is the first time all season I can look at that Cleveland team and say, hey, maybe they're not out of it. Maybe they have hope. They beat arguably the hottest team in football at home in a game that was must win for them. And all that this leaves begs the question is, why didn't they make this change sooner? I know you can talk to me about, hey, the money, they're paying him so much money. They're paying Deshaun Watson so much money. They're going to pay him that much money anyway. Why not try and win a football game? Why not try and build a competitive football team since you're going to have to pay him for the next 3 years, regardless of if he plays or not? Hopefully, this wakes up the Cleveland Browns and they can either cut him or let him ride out the rest of his career on that Cleveland bench. We will see. But that Cleveland team looked completely different. Jameis Winston brought the energy, the spark that they needed, and led a game-winning drive for the Cleveland Browns. They get their second win of the season, a much, much needed victory for those Cleveland Browns. But those are our 5 winners of the week. When we come back after this short break, we turn our attention to college football. We talk about the winners and losers from a crazy weekend, another crazy weekend. Chaos reigns once again in the world of college football. We'll talk about the 5 winners and losers coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is October 28th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the winners and losers from the NFL Week 8. Winners and losers including the Commanders and Jaden Daniels and Tyreek Stevenson as the biggest loser of the week. In this segment, we turn our attention to college football, go over the winners and losers from another crazy Saturday in the sport. We have 5 winners, 5 losers to cover, but before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, October 28th. Like I was saying, though, in this segment, we turn our attention to the sport of college football. College football week 9 is in the books, and yet again, chaos reigns supreme in that sport. We're going to start off with our losers here at number 5, Utah. And this is one that kind of went a little bit under the spotlight, under the radar here, because we have a team in Utah that, while they started off with it as a top 10 hopeful team, a team that was favored, in my opinion at least, to win the Big 12 with the way that they've been playing in the Pac-12 the last couple of seasons, with the health of their quarterback, Cam Rising, coming back, they have completely fallen off the face of the earth. They fired their offensive coordinator. Their head coach should be next, I think. But they lose a close one to Houston. Houston, a team that, in my opinion, is one of the worst, if not the worst, power conference team in the whole sport. That is a game that any Utah team, even one without Cam Rising in the last couple of seasons, would have won handily. That goes a little bit under the radar because while there's much bigger games out there, they've just completely fallen off of the face of the earth as far as national media coverage. When it comes to Utah, this is one of the this is the most disappointing season in recent memory, and something is going to change. Something drastic is going to happen over there. I'm not sure what, but Utah needs to get it figured out, and quickly. Our number 4 loser of the week is Ohio State, a massive blow to this team. They've now lost 2 straight games. After they end up winning this game, but it almost feels like a loss. After coming off of the bye week, again, you lose to Oregon in Eugene by 1 point. Bad clock management. You get all that hate. Kind of settles down after one of the more chaotic weeks of the entire season takes place on your bye week. Then you're expected to win by 25 points against a Nebraska team that just got blown out on the road against Indiana. An Indiana team that looks incredible. A Nebraska team that only beat Rutgers by 7. And now you have a juggernaut in Ohio State, a squad that's only losses to the number 1 team in the nation, and they eke by with a victory. A way too close for comfort victory by Ohio State. They stay very highly ranked because it's a win, but there's so much concern. If they play like that, they can't get the run game going. The offensive line is a real liability now that they have some injuries. They don't have the depth to deal with it. Ohio State has a lot of issues that were just kind of bubbling underneath the surface all season long. They stayed healthy. They looked competitive against not great teams. And now against a Nebraska team, a squad that's not that great, they almost lose. That is not a good look. They have a big game against Penn State, and they're not going to come in as the higher ranked team for maybe the first time against Penn State in a million years. Right? This is not a characteristic kind of situation that you find Ohio State in. This is a game that they need to get right because this schedule doesn't get very easy. They get Penn State, then they get Indiana, both top 12 ranked teams right now in the nation. This is not an easy end of the schedule for Ohio State. Then, of course, they have to play Michigan down the road as well. That's always a rivalry game. That's always going to be one of those that we have to keep tabs on. Down the stretch of this season, it does not get much easier for these Buckeyes. They need to show that they are competitors, that they are contenders, and they need to show that emphatically against Penn State coming up this weekend. Our number 3 loser, Liberty, once again finds itself on the list. They lose their first game since 2022, but not just losing. The fact that they lost to Kennesaw State, giving Kennesaw State their first ever FBS win. Liberty's been looking bad all season long. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. They're a team that plays a really soft schedule year in and year out. That's part of the CUSA. That's just how it goes. But also, it's just a soft schedule. They don't schedule anybody in the non-conference that really is much of a threat. Now, they did have the App State game this year, ended up getting canceled because of the hurricane, but still, they don't generally schedule anybody tough in the non-conference. This is not a good look for Liberty. They've eliminated themselves from playoff contention with how weak of the schedule is, and losing to a team that's never won a game in the FBS in their school history, and losing to the worst team in the FBS at the same time is not a good look for Liberty. They're our number 3 loser of the week. Our number 2 loser is Missouri, getting blanked by an Alabama squad that just has not looked that great. They've been very inconsistent all season long. They come out there, they play a great game, but Missouri, something is wrong with that team. They keep winning in heart-wrenching fashions. You give a heart attack every time they go out there and win, or they get completely blown out by much better competition. I don't know why Missouri is still ranked. They shouldn't be anywhere near a top 25. They've lost in any of the real tests. They've been absolutely destroyed. They barely beat Vandy. They barely beat Auburn. They barely beat Virginia Tech. These are games that they should be winning if they really are a top 25 team. This is not the performance of a Missouri team that had the expectations of a top 15 team heading into the year. I don't know why they're in the top 25. I don't want them anywhere near it. We'll talk about that tomorrow when we do our top 25. But Missouri is our number 2 loser. And that leads us to number 1. The number 1 loser of the week is Kyle McCord. We talked a little bit about it on Friday when we did our recap of that game. But once again, Kyle McCord with an all-time awful performance, 5 interceptions, 3 pick sixes, all in the first half, 2 in the first quarter, goes for 300 yards, sets a school record for consecutive 300 yards games, but still not good enough. It basically removed Syracuse from contention in the ACC in what really was their biggest game to date of this season, taking on a very good Pitt squad that was undefeated. If they had won, they would have been ranked. Instead, they come down, they get nothing done. It's incredibly disappointing as a team. This is not what you wanted to see for Kyle McCord. He is the biggest loser of the week. But getting over to the winners sections, our number 5 winner of the week is just the group of 5. We saw how deep that group of 5 these group of 5 teams go. They continue to find their ways onto winners right now. Boise State gets a tough victory over UNLV. UNLV continues to prove that they're still a very good squad despite 2 tough losses early in the season, 1 to Syracuse, 1 to Boise State. Tulane continues to dominate outside of 2 Power 4 losses that were really close against Oklahoma and Kansas State. They continue to dominate everybody else that they play. Army continues to play great. We saw Navy lose to Notre Dame in not so great fashion, but Washington State gets ranked. You now have 3 or 4 group of 5 teams in the top 25 and a couple more that are threatening to get in there. It is a really good time to be a group of 5 school. This renaissance is really cool to see. I'm not sure if it's a transfer portal, if it's the 12-team playoff that's helping it, but we've seen a lot more parity this year, and if it continues, these group of 5 schools can continue to build their brand and maybe compete with some G4 schools later on in the future. Our number 4 winner is Travis Hunter. He has an absolutely magnificent game against a great Cincinnati squad. A Cincinnati squad that quietly is just outside of that bowl eligibility bubble right now. 5 wins already in their season. They've played really good football. The only 2 losses they have are to 2 ranked teams. That, of course, is Pitt and Colorado. This is a really good Cincinnati team, and Travis Hunter goes off. He arguably is the Heisman favorite now after Ashton Jeanty has a down week, only rushing for 130 yards and a touchdown. Can't believe we let this guy on a football field, right? But he comes out there, shows why he should be up there for Heisman voting. This Heisman race is going to come down to the wire. I really kind of hope it doesn't go to one of the quarterbacks because that's the way that the betting favorites are going now. Dylan Gabriel at the top. And not saying he hasn't played like a Heisman winner, but still, you have these 2 phenomenal non-QB guys in Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty that are putting up incredible seasons, numbers that you just don't expect, or plays and positions that you don't expect. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to be a little bit pissed if Dylan Gabriel or Cam Ward wins the Heisman, honestly. Our number 3 winner of the week is Oregon. We talked a little bit about Dylan Gabriel just a second ago, but Oregon has finally kind of put a stranglehold on that number 1 overall seed in college football. Every team in this season has flaws, right? Miami continues to win some close games. Georgia has lost to Alabama, almost losing to Auburn. Texas lost to Georgia. Ohio State lost to Oregon and almost lost to Nebraska. All these guys at the top. Clemson loses to Georgia. Penn State continues to play close games that I think honestly they should lose a couple of them. You know, all of these teams that are at the top right now have issues. But Oregon had that slow start, was able to escape a couple of kind of nerve-wracking games at the beginning against Idaho, against Boise State, but then they turned it on. They have looked like the most complete team, and they are getting momentum at the right time. They've kind of separated themselves in a league of their own away from everybody else in the sport right now, and I'm not saying they can't be beat, because the way that this college football season has been going, the second you separate yourself, you lose the next week. But Oregon is a big winner this week. They kind of cement that number one seed, that number one ranking, and we will see what happens when the actual rankings come out. Our number 2 winner is Indiana. Yet again, they are one of 2 schools in the entire nation to never trail for a single second. They get another big win over a Washington squad that can be dangerous if you let them stay in it. Kurt Cignetti, without their starting quarterback, continues to win on a game day game where we've seen teams like this crumble. All the attention, too much for them. They're not ready for it. Indiana comes in, is professional, handles business. They got a couple more big tests coming up. They take on Ohio State in a few weeks. Excited to see if they can really finish off this season. But right now, they are controlling their own destiny, really, to a college football playoff spot. And Indiana in the first year of the college football playoff is something that nobody had on their bingo card. Should be a lot of fun. And of course, our number 1 winner of the week is Pitt. They came out there and they gave me the biggest surprise. Pitt is undefeated, so maybe it shouldn't have surprised me, but the way that defense played was the most shocking thing. We've seen them go up and survive some tough challenges already. A good West Virginia team. Cincinnati, we talked about, they had an incredible comeback, down 27-3 or something like that. They end up winning the game in regulation. This one, they just dominate from start to finish. A game that I thought was going to be their biggest test. They come up with now their biggest test this week, taking on SMU as an 18-19 game, I believe. That is going to be huge. I cannot wait. That one is to control your destiny, basically, to the ACC playoffs. So it should be a lot of fun. That is a massive game. Pitt is the number 1 winner. But let me know what you thought. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the world of baseball. The World Series is 2 games in. The Dodgers already up 2-0. A magical moment in Game 1 for Freddie Freeman. We'll talk about why we are here, how we got here, as we prepare for Game 3 in New York tonight. Stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, October 28th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over winners and losers from a wild weekend of football, the NFL, college football, lots and lots of craziness. In this segment, we turn our attention over to baseball. The World Series, the Fall Classic, is 2 games down, and the Dodgers with a commanding 2-0 lead. Game 3 tonight as part of that 4-headed sports equinox that we talk about with all 4 major American sports taking place this beautiful Monday. We're going to talk about how we got here, how the Dodgers broke out to this 2-0 lead, and if we can see it continue back in New York for Game 3 of the World Series tonight. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, October 28th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we turn our attention to the beautiful sport of baseball. The Dodgers in the Fall Classic take a commanding 2-0 lead as they travel to New York for Game 3 tonight. And let's take you through it, because this has been everything that was asked of this series when we were previewing it earlier. The Dodgers and the Yankees, two powerhouses in baseball, collide, and we have had some instant classics, including the Game 1 to end all Game 1s. As a kid, if you were a baseball fan at any point, you come in there and you've had this kind of dream before. I know I wrote an essay about it, honestly. My SOL in 5th grade was about that very moment. Bases loaded, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs. You are up to bat in the World Series. You hit a grand slam. That is the dream. And for the first time in MLB history, Freddie Freeman made that happen. A walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the 9th inning to win Game 1 of the World, in the bottom of the 10th inning, in Game 1 to win the World Series. That is what dreams are made of right there, and what a magical moment it was. The Dodgers have come out with that momentum after Game 1. Game 1 that we saw the continuation of playoff Giancarlo Stanton hitting a 2-run bomb to give the Yankees the lead early in this game. One that lasted until, obviously, it got tied and headed to extras. A 2-run bomb that was the only offense for the Yankees in regulation. He's been playing out of his mind, Giancarlo Stanton has. We have seen incredible pitching. Garrett Cole goes 7. Jack Flaherty pitches a gem of a game outside of, again, that one home run given up. This has been everything that it has lived up for. The Dodgers, after Game 1, win Game 2 in a little bit more boring fashion. They still win 4-2, not a walk-off, but Yoshi Yamamoto comes out there and dominates. 6 innings, 1 hit. It was a home run for Juan Soto on his 26th birthday. Juan Soto is about to get about $600 million. He's going to be a very, very rich man, win or lose this World Series. And he already has a World Series, so this is just for fun for him right now. Obviously, I'm sure he'd like to win, but not something that is 100% needed for his legacy here. Aaron Judge, on the other hand, is very concerning. Aaron Judge in this series is 1 for 9. 1 for 9, hitting 111 in the World Series, and it hasn't just been the World Series. He has been struggling mightily all playoff long. His playoff average is sitting at under 200. He cannot get anything going. And we talked about when we were previewing this series, what is it going to take for either of these sides to win? It's going to take the big three to step up, and especially for the Yankees, it was going to take for the big three to step up. You have a Yankee squad that, for all of its successes, everything that it's done great, everything that it's done awesome all season long, it has relied more than any other team on 2 or 3 guys. And those 3 guys, when they are not showing up, this is a completely different Yankees team. You have Giancarlo Stanton stepping in to that Aaron Judge role right now, keeping them alive in this series, keeping these games close. Juan Soto continues to play just incredible Juan Soto baseball, getting on base seemingly every other time he is up to bat, maybe even more than that. He's a very special player right there, but Aaron Judge has been so ineffective, it has killed a lot of Yankees moments in these playoffs. This is something that needs to get fixed if the Yankees want to avoid a sweep. This is a series that has everything going for it. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, the 2 MVPs. Now we'll get to Shohei Ohtani in a second, but with the Yankees, their only problem, Their pitching has been great. It really has. Against a vaunted Dodgers lineup, their pitching has been really, really good. They've gotten into and out of jams, but they haven't given up too many runs. Now, it looks like they have due to a grand slam to walk it off, but really outside of that one swing, they've only given up 6 runs all series long. It has been a really, really effective series for both of these pitching staffs. But Aaron Judge needs to step up, and he needs to step up big time if the Yankees want to win a World Series. But getting to Shohei Ohtani, because that is the bigger story. In Game 2, Shohei Ohtani leaves early after swiping second base with a shoulder injury. All reports are that he is going to be okay, that he is playing in this Game 3, but that is something to monitor. Shohei Ohtani, more than any other player, is a guy that you hate to see injured. And maybe that's not fair for me to say, but what he can do on the pitcher's mound with a bat in his hand, I don't want to see him get hurt because that's just bad for the sport of baseball in general. But he's supposedly out there, supposedly doing fine enough to play. But this is a massive story. If the Dodgers don't have him, this becomes a much different series. As good as this Dodgers pitching has been, as good as it has been all series long, they don't win this series without Shohei Ohtani, point blank, period. If he is really 100% and the pitching continues the way it's going, I think the Yankees are just screwed because, like I said, Aaron Judge has not been there to show up. But still, there is that little glimmer of hope for Yankees fans that something drastic could change. They need to see that Game 3 tonight. Down 2-0, Game 3, the Yankees hand the ball to Clark Schmidt on the mound. The Dodgers turn. I apologize. Clark Schmidt in this game taking on Walker Buehler on the mound. Walker Buehler, who's coming off of what is a resurgent start, his best start in a very long time in the NL Championship Series to basically clinch that spot in the World Series. That was a massive game against the Mets to give them a 3-1 lead. Another must-win game for a New York team in New York. So he has gone through a very similar situation. Both of these teams, both of these bullpens have been nails all series long. Again, aside from that one Freddie Freeman situation with the Yankees, they have been nails all season long, or all series long. This one is a need for the Yankees. I don't see them dropping this one, although I am very tempted to see if Walker Buehler can do what he did again. I'm leaning a little bit towards the Dodgers. I want to see the Yankees win to see this go further, but I think the way it's going right now with the lack of Aaron Judge hitting, I'm going to lean with the Dodgers and Walker Buehler. They take a 3-0 lead, and I think this series is just about over, honestly. Unless, again, caveat here, Aaron Judge, 2 hits in this game. 2 hits, one of them being an extra base hit. If he's able to do that, the Yankees win. If not, and he continues to go 0 for or 1 for, the Dodgers are basically in sweep city right now. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the Monday Night Football action. The New York Giants take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in a game that maybe isn't so highly anticipated, but is a very important one for both of these teams. So we'll talk about that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, October 28th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the World Series. The Dodgers with a 2-0 commanding lead, a walk-off grand slam in Game 1. Game 3 tonight in New York. In this segment, we finish off our show with some Monday Night Football predictions. A big game in the NFL for two teams that are very much on opposite spectrums on this season. We have Russell Wilson, his second start for the Steelers, going up against the New York Giants tonight. A big game for both of them to prove that either, yes, they are for real, or hey, we are not dead yet. Before we get into that, though, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or, if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, October 28th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the final segment here. Apologize. The Monday Night Football preview. The New York Giants. A must-win game for them, as far as any game is must-win for them. They're a team that probably doesn't really have any of those, but still, the Giants in a situation where, win or lose, this game is more for the future of the organization. Is Daniel Jones really going to be the answer? Right now, all signs point to no. The bigger question for the Giants, is Brian Daboll going to be there for the future? I personally think it would be stupid of the Giants to fire Brian Daboll. What Brian Daboll has been able to do with scraps, with nothing, in his coaching tenure is incredibly impressive, and I think he deserves to be up there, talked about with some of the best coaches in the league. I think he deserves to be up in that conversation. The results don't speak for themselves, but that's what happens when you're handed trash and expected to make treasure here. It's not something that's supposed to happen. As far as the Steelers side, this game is to prove if it's for real. Last week, obviously, they took down the New York Jets in a very similar situation. The Jets coming into town on prime time. Aaron Rodgers just got his best friend weapon back. It didn't matter. They shut them down. Russell Wilson, in his first start, puts 30 points up for the Steelers. Probably their best offensive performance, and it's because he trusted in George Pickens. George Pickens, a guy that is going to be the X factor in this game. As much as you can say it's Russell Wilson, he's just going to throw it up. Is George Pickens going to make those 50-50 catches? That's what it's going to come down to. That is the X factor in this game. You have a Giants defense that has been sneakily pretty good. Now, through the air, they're beatable. But what Najee Harris has been able to do over the last couple of weeks, I don't think is sustainable in this one. I don't think he's getting over 100 yards again. He might find his way into the end zone, but he's not finding a way to 100 yards in this one yet again. Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive players, just period, in all of football. You have a really good edge. You have a really good pass rush, a really good front four. I've been saying it for a while about this team, but the corners are sneaky good as well. Drew Phillips, in conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Not going to happen, but still, he's been playing really, really good corner in the NFL. You have Adoree Jackson, who has made his fair share of mistakes, but overall, pretty good. Deonte Banks, who had some criticism for the effort he's been putting up in some of these games. I understand it. Still, he's just... If you look at how he plays, when he gives it his all, he is an incredibly talented corner. He's able to keep pace with some of the best receivers in the NFL. Outside of a couple big plays to a Justin Jefferson and a CeeDee Lamb, he's been a really good lockdown corner for the Giants, given a lot of tough assignments. That's what it's going to come down to. Deonte Banks versus George Pickens in this one, and I cannot wait to see what happens. From the Steelers side of the ball here, they have a really good defense. Yet again, They were able to shut down what is supposedly a high-powered offense in the Jets. They're not going to run into a high-powered offense here, but there are still a couple of guys that they need to look out for. Tyrone Tracy is like a lightning bolt out of the backfield. He's coming in, taking up more and more carries from a Devin Singletary that I don't think is the best back in that backfield. I think it should be Tyrone Tracy's backfield, but a converted wide receiver at running back, what he's going to be able to do with space in the screen game, what he's able to do with short routes going up against linebackers, that is what an elite third down running back has. So if the Giants are going to be successful, he's going to have a big game. Wan'Dale Robinson in the flat, he's not someone that I'm really too worried about. But if you're looking for the big play receiver on this team, as much as you want it to be Jalen Hyatt, he doesn't see the field. We're talking about Darius Slayton here. He's the guy that if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him to take the top off this defense. But really, when we're evaluating this Giants offense, the question is, can they hold up? And the answer is flat out going to be no. Without Andrew Thomas, who is one of the best left tackles in all of football, they are trash, that offensive line. Not only is Andrew Thomas hurt, but some other starters on that line have gone down as well. TJ Watt is going to feast in this game. I'm looking at him for maybe 2-3 sacks in this one, even with what he's going to be able, with the lack of resistance he's going to have. The Giants offense is going to be a lot of quick game, a lot of dink, a lot of dunk, a lot of try and get yak. Malik Neighbors maybe should get more involved, a lot of slant routes, a lot of screens. This is the kind of offense that the Giants have been running, and especially now that the offensive line is as bad as it is, the run game isn't going to be super effective against a good Steelers defense. They're going to need to do those run game extension kind of plays, these quick passes, get it out to the flat, make quick decisions, read options, get Daniel Jones going a little bit if they want something to happen. I'm not too optimistic about this Giants team. Pittsburgh comes into this game favored by 6. I think they should dominate. The Steelers with Russell Wilson looked a lot better. Still, though, I want to see it again. I want to see him do it against the other New York team. I'm not super convinced that he really is as good as he was against the Jets. Still, though, I think they win pretty easily. Pittsburgh Steelers win this game 30-13. But let me know what you think about this game, about this outcome. I'd love to hear your thoughts. When we return tomorrow, it is Rankings Tuesday. That's right, we're going over NFL Power Rankings, NCAA Top 25, and all of the action from this sports equinox tonight. Enjoy a wonderful night of sports. Anything you want to watch, there is something on for anyone, so go and check that out. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about all of that and more. You've been listening to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.